Hello and welcome to Love Good Kitchen. My name is Matthew and I'm so glad you're joining me today. Today we are going to make what is called an easy party lasagna. Now it definitely is easy. I'm not sure why it's called a party lasagna, but it is really tasty, very simple to prepare, certainly not as complicated as a traditional lasagna. Now, it's not going to compete with your Italian grandmother's classic lasagna recipe, but for a quick weeknight or a throw-together lasagna, it's really tasty. So let's go over the ingredients that we're going to use today. We have a pound of ground beef. Now, you could use ground turkey, you could use ground pork, or sausage would be delicious. You could also use some soy crumbles or another alternative protein. Could easily be used in this. We have some salt and pepper. We have a 1/4 cup of milk, a cup of water, a can of condensed tomato soup, and a can of cream of mushroom soup. Now with the tomato soup, you could use any brand or variety. They have some with spices in them or different flavors. Any of those will work. This one is just a plain tomato, and that's fine. We have 2 cups of shredded mozzarella cheese. Usually I like to shred my own cheese, except when it comes to mozzarella, unless it's being sliced or something. I find it just too difficult to shred and work with, so I do buy the pre-shredded when it comes to mozzarella. And then we have 6 uncooked lasagna noodles, and they can be either the regular lasagna noodles or the no-boil. Either one will work, it doesn't matter. So, let's get started. I'm going to turn my pan on here because we need to cook up the, in this case I'm using ground beef. So turn that on. I'm going to put this in our pan. And then I've got my mix and chop, Pampered Chef. We're just going to use this to give it a few turns and break it up. I love this thing. It's so easy. Now, something that I have learned with this tool that maybe you already know, or if you're in the market to get a mix and chop, then it's good to know that you want to break up your meats, your tomatoes, whatever it is you're using. If it's in the pan, you want to do that before your pan gets to full heat, because if you leave this instrument in contact with the really hot pan for too long, it will melt. So don't do that. I may have learned that the hard way. Right, I'm just going to use this to make sure I don't leave any of our deliciousness on the mix and chop. There. Okay. And then I'm also, as this gets going, I'm also going to salt and pepper the meat. Now I know a lot of chefs and people you see on TV say not to do that. I'm not sure why, because I think the food ends up having a lot more flavor. I've never had a problem with things being over salted or over seasoned. Just a little bit. Enough in between my fingers. A pinch. So I'm not sure exactly how much that is, if that's 1/8 of a teaspoon, but just enough. So we're going to let that heat up and get going. Make sure I have my heat on. I do. Okay, and then in this bowl, what we're going to do is combine the mushroom soup with the milk and 1/2 cup of the cheese. So I'm going to use the little claw hook on my Pampered Chef smooth edge can opener to just easily open that can. There. There's my scraper. So we're going to put this in a bowl. Let me move that so I don't knock into my pan. And I've got a little mini scraper here. This is great for clearing things like this out of the can, so you don't leave a whole lot left in the can. Just getting the soup out of there. Also, this is going to end up being baked, so I have preheated the oven to 400 degrees. So you'll want to do that as you get started, so you don't have to wait too long. There's a lot of soup in here. All right. Get it all? Yeah, there's more. Don't want to leave any of that tasty business in there. All right, I think we did it. So we did that, and we need to add in our milk. This is 1/4 cup. And don't worry, I'm going to list the recipe in the description box below the video, so you don't have to worry about hurriedly writing this all down. You know what I think might be easier is if I just use my whisk. Might go a little faster. There we go. Okay. So that's combined. And then we need about 1/2 cup of the cheese. So for this you don't have to get too crazy with the measurement, but this is a 1/2 cup measure. Plop that in there. Voila. Give this a stir. Great. And that's it. All right, our meat is going. Use this to keep stirring it around. Should only take about a couple minutes for this to brown up. You don't want any pink left in your meat. That's how you'll know that it's all browned up and ready to go. And I am prepared to drain this if I need to. At the moment, I'm not really getting much grease at all, so that's good. But if there is, if we start to collect some grease, I'm going to want to drain that off so that it doesn't make our recipe too watery or too liquidy. All right, it's looking good. We're getting there. Now another thing that we can do while we're waiting on this for a minute is you want to put this lasagna in a 2-quart casserole dish, or I have an 11x7 dish that I'm going to use. I find that it fits the noodles pretty well. So the recipe doesn't say to do this, but I always do it with this sort of thing so that the food doesn't get stuck in the pan. I'm going to spray it with a little non-stick spray. So we don't have to worry about it not coming out. Just a little bit. Ta-da! We did it. Okay. So like I said, this is looking good. There isn't really a whole lot of grease at all. If it was looking like I was going to have a drainable amount of grease, then I would pour that off. You can use a colander. I have one of those contraptions that fits over the side of the pan that you can tip it and it'll drain the grease off. Sometimes I use a dinner plate and hold it over. Just be careful, of course, because that grease is hot. You also don't want to dump it down your drain, because when that grease cools, it solidifies, and that is fast track to clogging up your drain. So don't just dump it down the drain if you do that. Alright, but we don't really have much grease here, so I don't think we're going to drain it. We're just going to move forward. Looks good. Alright, I'm going to turn this down, 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 down. Next up, we're going to take our can of tomato soup, whatever flavor or variety you like. put that directly into the pan with our meat. Beautiful. Okay. That's about it. And also our 1 cup of water. And give it a stir. Now we just finished cooking the meat, so we're just heating this through a little bit and getting it all stirred around and combined before we move on with our recipe. Now you may be wondering, gee, that looks pretty watery, but you don't have to pre-cook the lasagna noodles, so a lot of that liquid, that moisture, is going to get soaked up by those noodles. So don't worry, it turns out. Okay, we've given that a stir. Looks good. We have our mixture here of the mushroom soup and the milk and 1/2 cup of the cheese. Now, let me refer over here so I make sure I'm not skipping anything for you. We did spray our pan, so that's good. Oh, so next up I'm going to grab a different spoon. This one will hold a little more sauce. You're just going to put enough of this meat and tomato mixture, just enough in the bottom to kind of make a little layer, if you will. It's not going to be solid. We just want something for our first row of noodles to rest on. There. I think that is about enough. I'm going to move this up here. So the next thing we're going to do is take 3 of the noodles and place them in our pan, side by side. See, that's why I like the 11 by 7. It fits pretty nicely in there, if you can see that. And then we're going to put, again, let me make sure I have my recipe. I don't want to be telling you wrong. Yes, okay, I'm going to move that handle again so it's not in our way. Then you take about 1/2 of your mushroom soup and cheese mixture. I'm going to put that on. Set that there. And I'm just taking my spoon and kind of spreading it out. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it in a more even layer over your noodles. Good. Now I'm just going to use my hands, I did wash them right before we started, to sprinkle a little more of the shredded mozzarella cheese on there. There. Looks good. Okay, next up we're going to do, and I'm going to turn this off now, because I think we're done cooking you. Slide this here. Now I'm spooning on some more of the meat and tomato mixture. Excellent. Now we do the remaining 3 noodles on top. Boop, boop, and boop. Now we do the rest of our cheese, milk, and mushroom soup mixture. If you are not a fan of mushrooms, then you could just use a different cream soup. A can of cream of potato or cream of celery, or there are a few different kinds. I mean, I suppose you could just go crazy with the meats and do creamed chicken if you really wanted to. But you got options. You can switch it up to suit your own taste, your own needs. Why not? I'm just spreading this out just like I did the first layer of this, so that it's a little more even and things are a little more covered. Good. Now I'm going to sprinkle a little bit more of the shredded mozzarella cheese on. Great, and now, this one over here, and now we take the remainder and we put it on top. Be careful, it's hot. And like I said, you're gonna think that it's too soupy, too watery, but it's gonna work out fine because those noodles are not pre-cooked, so they need something to come to life. So I'm just going to spread that out a little bit more. Make sure it's more even. Beautiful. Okay. So now let me check. I know it's 400 degrees. I've preheated the oven. Yes, we do want to cover it. So I'm going to cover it with a piece of foil. Do that. There, and maybe you do this already, maybe you know this little trick, but if you're worried about your food sticking to the foil on whatever that you're heating up or cooking in the oven, just give it a little spritz with your nonstick spray, and then that won't happen. Flip it over. Give this a cover. And we are going to bake this in that oven that's at 400 degrees for about 40 minutes. And then we're going to check it at 40 minutes. We're going to take the cover off. We're going to sprinkle on the rest of the mozzarella cheese and bake it for another 10 minutes or so. You want it to be nice and bubbly and for the cheese to be melted, and it'll be ready to go. So I'm going to put this in the oven and I'll bring you back so we can see the finish. We're back. Our party lasagna has been baking in the oven at 400 degrees for about 40 minutes, and it is quite bubbling and hot at the moment, molten, but it looks cheesy, creamy, delicious. I can't hold it up to the camera because that would be bad. It's very hot at the moment. But what I am going to do is put this remaining shredded mozzarella cheese on top. Give it a sprinkle. It smells good. It looks good. There. And then we are going to leave it uncovered. I'm going to put it back in the oven just for a couple minutes until that cheese melts, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, we're back. The cheese has melted on the top of our easy party lasagna, and I think it's ready to give it a taste. I did let it cool for a little while. You do need to let this one cool because otherwise when you cut it and try to dish it out, it's going to be too hot and it's going to spread all over and be a mess. So let it solidify a little bit, cool it down. Maybe it might not be cool enough yet to taste, but I can't wait. I need to cut into it and try some. I did want to mention that when you are assembling the lasagna, you want to make sure that each lasagna noodle, and each layer of lasagna noodle is covered by something, whether it be that mushroom soup and cheese mixture, or cheese, or some of the tomato and meat sauce mixture, something. You want it to be covered. If you have any exposed noodle, then it's going to tend to be too crispy and crunchy. So just try to cover everything up in a little lasagna blanket, and it should all be good. All right, so I've got a knife here. I'm going to cut a little piece so that I can try it. Really excited. Cutting a little square here. You know, the first piece of anything is always difficult to get out of the pan, but we're gonna try. All right, plate. Let's see how this goes. Pretty good. One little corner got left behind. Get that on there. Delicious. I'll hold this closer so you can see. Yum. Okay, time for a taste. Some of each. Here I go. That's really good. And so easy. A lot faster and a lot easier than a traditional lasagna. You can see that the noodles have absorbed all that extra liquid that was in the pan when we first assembled it. They're cooked beautifully. They're not mushy, but they're not crunchy. The flavors all melded together with that cheesy sauce and the tomato, and that's really good. I hope that you give this a try, the Easy Party Lasagna. I've listed the recipe in the description box below the video. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Hit that icon, helps me out. And also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, Love Good Kitchen, please do. It's free and it only takes a second. And hit that little notification bell so that you will be notified every time we post a new video. So thanks so much for joining me. Let me know what you think. Give it a try. And I will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.